I have fond memories of climbing into their bed when I was a little gal, and I would climb in on mom's side usually, and I just felt so safe there. So that was a great feeling, just safe and stable. And I thought she was so warm, and I always appreciated that.
When I was in kindergarten, I did the afternoon kindergarten, and so in the morning I'd hang out just by myself or with mom. And I do remember one time she randomly decided that she would be willing to play soccer with me out in the yard, which was not in her comfort zone. I don't remember why, but I just remember having such a good time with it that it's one of those few memories that you actually remember from being so little.
I got a good one. It was kind of gross though. Um, so uh, after the tooth fairy visited me one time, there's just a bunch of change, like quarters and nickels and dimes and stuff. And I was excited, and so I was carrying it around in my chubby little hand all day, the money. And mom multiple times told me to set it down so I wouldn't lose it. Of course, I ignored her. And I even took it with me to go to the bathroom. So you can tell what happened. I dropped it all in the toilet because I forgot it was in my hand and went to grab the toilet paper. Oh no! And so, of course, I'm not going to talk to Dad about it because he'd just be like, flush it. So I went and I was crying, and I went to Mom like, oh no, I lost all my tooth fairy stuff. And she's like, all right, I got you. She grabbed like a soup ladle, and I don't want to know what happened, but a while later she came back with my change, and I was like, oh, all right. So that was pretty awesome. But I mean, thinking about it, if I put myself in her position, I would have just flushed that chi and brought my kids a bunch of fresh change, like, oh, I got it for her. Actually, maybe that's exactly what she did. I don't know.
The first thing that comes to my mind is reading. She loved reading and still does to this day, and Mom would read to all of us, and I loved it. I just ate it up, especially one particular book. For whatever reason, I loved Rumpelstiltskin. That kind of really old, it was really vividly colored book, the halls in the big rooms with the big kind of golden straw, or the golden thread that had come from the straw. Just beautiful, beautiful illustrations. I would request that every single time. Every single time.
A lot of memories of Mom in her favorite chair reading either Nail Marsh, Mary Higgins Clark, or Agatha Christie. And I'm not sure I would love reading to the degree that I do if I hadn't had that example before me. I think the love of mysteries was born because of Mom's love of mysteries. So I'm very grateful for that. I remember the feeling of sitting next to her, and she would have her hand rest on my arm. Like she was reading usually, and I would just curl up next to her, and she would just calmly rest her hand on my arm. And I remember loving that so much. Again, maybe partly because she was just warm, but it just made me feel calm and safe.
Yeah, I do remember as well driving up with her to, me and Ariel went, but me and Ariel went with Mom, and we drove up to Kaysville after Grandpa Butler died. I remember that I was impressed with Grandma, which isn't Mom, but I was impressed with how well they handled when Grandpa passed. There were a few different times that, they showed a lot of emotion, but for the most part, it was pretty impressive.
One of them was when we camped out to watch Star Wars. This was back in 2001. I remember those days fondly. No, it wasn't 2001. It was the late 90s, 99. We camped out for like 2 weeks. This was before you could get tickets online. And it was down at the Windsong Theater. And so, we would go there from time to time, but Mom was really strict on not missing school. She was big on that. But she knew that this was important to us. And so it just so happened that, the day before, when the line actually started to move, we weren't even there because we were at school. And she actually, without even asking us, went down there, bought a bunch of tickets for us, and yeah, we saw it on opening night. If it hadn't been for her, all of those 2 weeks, I mean, we had a fun time, but the 2 weeks would have been completely, for nothing because we wouldn't have gotten the tickets for ourselves. So she was always willing to take one for the team, I guess. She wasn't one that would say, okay, no, you guys just can't do that. She knew it was important to us, and so she followed through and sacrificed her time to make sure that we got the tickets.
I have a lot of memories of her driving me all over the place, to soccer, to dance lessons, swim lessons, school. As a mom now, I recognize how much of a sacrifice that can be, and inconvenience, and how stressful it can be to try to coordinate that amongst multiple kids. And I never heard a word of complaint out of her.
She took us to a lot of cultural kind of events. Most of them were probably at BYU somewhere. But yeah, a lot of plays, a lot of concerts for choir, orchestra, that sort of thing. Usually, yeah, she'd take us out afterward for, ice cream or shake or something like that. I really enjoyed that, and I really appreciate that she did that, because it really kind of fomented an interest that I had in that sort of thing, that music and plays and so on.
Mom's involvement in our lives with everything. I mean, with sports, with dancing, I think that was only Ariel, but still Mom was heavily involved in that. Sports, dancing, gymnastics, scouts. I mean, she was there for all of it. I don't remember how many times, she took me to cello practices, and then took me to, concerts, recitals, scout activities, helped me with scout activities. She was just really, really involved in my life, in all of our lives as children, and it made a huge difference.
Most of my memories with Mom that I can think of off the top of my head are usually more consistent memories. By that I mean, not like one specific act, but her consistently being at like every soccer game, every flippant activity that I had to be driven to, etc.
Vacations obviously were a big one. When we'd go to Oregon, back when we did that, that was really fun. And other little staycations we did close to home. We went to California a couple times.
I loved the surprise vacation that Mom and Dad planned, and that Mom, actually, maybe it was just Mom, I can't remember, but I was in 4th grade, so I was in 4th, Dave was in 1st, Mike was in 8th, Nate would have been in 10th, and Dan and I in 11th as juniors. So Mom packed for all of us. She packed for 8 people for 5 days or 6 days or something, and then surprised us with a vacation to California. And we went to Disneyland and some other places, some other amusement parks. But it was so fun, and that was such a fun way of doing it too. Like, the vacation on its own would have been amazing, but to present it in that way, to let it be a surprise, that was the best. Oh, it was amazing. It was one of my it still is a treasured childhood memory.
I also remember a time when Dad and a couple of the brothers went fishing, and I wasn't a huge fan of fishing. Still am not a huge fan. But I was like, yeah, I don't really want to go. So Mom said, you know what? I'll stick around and I'll take you to the Pioneer Drive-Thru. Those were the days back when you go into a drive-in, you pull up your car, you have to tune in the radio station to a specific spot on the AM, and you could then hear the movie through your car speakers. It was pretty awesome. We watched one of the George Clooney Batman movies, and it was awful. But I mean, I was a kid at the time, so I still loved it. And then we watched some chick flick called IQ. That was what it was, with what's his face, Dennis Quaid, and Meg Ryan. And not like I was a huge fan of either of those movies, but it was fun to spend time with her.
When I was in high school, I was taking this childcare class. The class students, the high school students, would act as preschool teachers, and they would have actual preschoolers come in. And for my birthday, I thought it would be really fun to have cupcakes for the kids. I think I just asked Mom to make cupcakes and frost cupcakes and drive to my school, which was 4 miles away. So now I'm kind of embarrassed, like, what an ask. I hope I was grateful enough. She was just like, okay, yeah, I can do that. And she did. And it was not a need. It was just something that I wanted to get to do with these kids, but she complied, and that was just generous and kind of her.
I remember one other time when I was in middle school, and one of my school projects was to put together this poster and just kind of, draw a picture on it of the book that we had been reading at the time. And it was I got a poster that was too big. And so, I did all the main picture that I was trying to draw, and then there was all of this white space outside of it. And this was getting late at night. I started coloring in all the sky, got the sky done, started coloring in all the grass, and I was nodding off and couldn't stay awake. So Mom just said, you know what, go to sleep. I'll finish it up for you. I don't know how long it took her, but we got it all done and I got a good grade.
I loved doing Black Friday shopping with her when I was starting around that same age, that we would wake up so early, and I'm not an early bird, but it was fun to just get to go along and be productive. And I don't know, we'd eat breakfast out and try to hit a whole bunch of stores and get some of the shopping done off of the list.
I always think about Mom being there and helping and being involved and being encouraging. And with all these things that we had going on, still she was always right in the thick of it. It was a really, really nice thing that we had our mom so involved in our lives.